Tuesday, May 7th.
The whole world is looking to you to destroy
The Dutch government keeps its forces on a war footing and orders all international telephone connections to be cut.
Death to the German invaders.
In Paris, the Prime Minister Paul Reynaud meets Marshal Pétain, the French ambassador to Spain. He informs him of his intentions of bringing him into his Council of Ministers because disagreements with the military are increasing daily. General Georges Maurice, possibly the best soldier in the country, won't speak to Maurice Gamelin, the supreme commander of all the land forces. Reynaud considered that Gamelin could have been a good bishop, but he was nothing like a leader. In London, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain faces criticism in the House of Commons over the disastrous campaign in Norway. The harsh attacks of the opposition and the criticisms from some members of his own party, whom he considered good friends and who now call on him to leave, forced the Prime Minister to put his position in hands of his party. The German intelligence service intercepts 2 telegrams from the Vatican to the Belgian embassy in Rome, warning that the country will be attacked by Germany very soon. Aware of what has been happening, Hitler orders those responsible for the messages to be arrested. Wednesday, May 8th. In London, the respected and now elderly Lloyd George asks Chamberlain to accept the fact that he is not the type of leader the country needs at this time. After his resignation, the Conservative Party tries to find a replacement. Lord Halifax, the foreign minister, seeks the necessary supports to become Prime Minister. However, the Labour Party opposes a coalition government headed by Lord Halifax, preferring Winston Churchill, who enjoys more popular support. The Dutch government arrests Anton Muser, leader of the NSB, the National Socialist Movement in the Netherlands. Meanwhile, the Dutch coast is being mined by the Germans to prevent any British naval intervention. In Berlin, Hitler decides that the invasion of the Western countries should take place on the 10th, even if weather conditions are unfavorable. In Moscow, Stalin makes General Semyon Timoshenko the new Commissar of Defense, dismissing General Kliment Voroshilov. The Soviet leader tells the new army chief to find better officers than those who took part in the disastrous winter war with Finland. The Turkish government declares a state of war. Thursday, May 9th. Hitler leaves on his train America for Hamburg, Hanover, and eventually Earskirchen, near the Belgian border. From his command post, he orders Case Yellow, Fall Gelb, to begin the next day at 4:30. Danzig is the code word used by the Wehrmacht generals to talk about the start of the invasion, along with the word broadcast on German radio, Morgenröte, which gives the German commanders authority to enter the Netherlands. In Berlin, General Hans Oster and Admiral Canaris, chief of the intelligence service of the Wehrmacht, are placed under surveillance by the Gestapo and the SS, suspected of passing on information to the enemy. Von Ribbentrop, the German foreign minister, calls on the governments of the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg to accept the protection of the Third Reich forces against the imminent threat of a Franco-British invasion of their countries. In Paris, French Prime Minister Reynaud discusses with his cabinet the dismissal of General Maurice Gamelin, but he meets strong opposition from his predecessor, who is now Minister of Defense, Edouard Daladier. The British government drafts 1 million men, while in Italy, Senator Maraviglia declares that his country is on a pre-war footing. In the Sea War, the French submarine Doris is sunk by U-9, commanded by Wolfgang Luth off the Dutch coast. Friday, May 10th. At 4 in the morning, 12,000 men of the 22nd Airborne Division and 2,000 of the 7th Flieger German Divisions, commanded by General Kurt Student, take off on board J-52 planes to be deployed at strategic points in Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and France. At the same time, thousands of fighter planes and bombers attack the airfields, roads, and railway lines of the 4 countries. The first wave of Luftwaffe attacks destroys more than 400 aircraft stationed at their bases. From The Hague in Holland to the city of Mary-sur-Oise, 30 kilometers to the north of Paris, the distraught locals suffer the horror of German air attacks. At 5:30, Hitler announces that in this new war, the destiny of the German nation for the next 1,000 years will be decided. The Wehrmacht forces of Army Group A, commanded by Gerd von Rundstedt, carry out the first attack in the area of the Ardennes on the way to Sedan. Army Group B, under General Fedor von Bock, does likewise in Belgium and Holland, and Army Group C, commanded by General Wilhelm von Lieb, protects the German defensive line, the Westwall, and raids the French Maginot Line. At 7 o'clock, General Gamelin puts into operation the Dial Plan, and Allied troops cross the Belgian border to face the German attack. Meanwhile, German soldiers take the Eben Emael fortress near Liège. In London, the new Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, takes the defensive portfolio and orders British troops to occupy Iceland. Saturday, May 11th. In Belgium, King Leopold orders his armies to withdraw to the River Meuse to join the forces of the Allied Dial Plan. The divisions commanded by Van Bock advance towards Dinant, Maastricht, and Liège, with the 7th Panzer Division headed by General Rommel heading for the coast. The armies of Gerd von Rundstedt, distributed between Generals Gunther and von Kluge, Wilhelm List, and Ernst Busch, rapidly break through the Ardennes forests in the southeast of Belgium, heading for the French border to the surprise of the Allied command. Meanwhile, the 1st Panzer Division of General Heinz Guderian moves towards Sedan and reaches the Samois River on the Franco-Belgian border, forcing the French forces led by General Charles Huitzinger to retreat. The efforts of the Allied armies and air forces to stop the Nazi offensive on the different fronts are a failure. In London, Churchill orders several RAF squadrons to bomb German territory. Essen, in the heartland of the industrial Ruhr area, becomes the first city to suffer a British air attack. In the Pacific, Allied troops occupy the oil fields of the Dutch Indies, while American and Japanese ships move into the area. In Norway, German planes bomb the Allied ships which are blocking the harbor at Narvik, and the Swedish government rejects Göring's request to allow supplies for the German army in Norway to cross Sweden by train. In the Sea War, U-9, commanded by Wolfgang Luth, sinks the merchant ships Tringa and Viu. Sunday, May 12th. In the Netherlands, von Bock's forces pushed the Dutch army back to Utrecht and Amsterdam. To the south, Maastricht falls to the Germans, along with the bridges over the River Meuse, one of their main objectives. The royal family leaves the country on board the destroyer HMS Condrington for exile in Britain, while some of the country's gold reserves are loaded onto the cruisers Galatea and Eurythus. Queen Wilhelmina will leave the next day. Having crossed River Samois, the divisions of von Rundstedt, with the panzers of General Guderian acting as a battering ram, advance towards France on their way to the deserted Sedan, where they arrive at dusk. The Allied troops of General Charles Hunziga have taken up positions on the fortifications near the River Meuse. In Belgium, the Germans take Malmedy, and in view of the reports from the French Air Force about large numbers of troops moving to Liège and Brussels, the Allied generals Henri Giraud, John Gore, and Gers Blanchard order their men to advance to reinforce the lines on the Mouse-Dial-Acalda rivers. At the same time, the Luftwaffe eliminates Allied air resistance and bombs lines of communications. In Italy, Mussolini orders forces in the Alpine regions bordering France to be increased.